Is this thing on? Richtofen! Hey, Richtofen! Been gone from my head a really long time. I gotta be honest, I'm freaking out a bit, man. It's so quiet. I can actually hear myself think. You know what that's like? It's not nice at all.
Hello patrons, welcome back to the Aether Kitchen. Following the short on Victis we uploaded on 115 day, we've been working hard on expanding it into a full video. A big thank you to one of our sous chefs, Angel, from our Discord for the research he's put into this topic. Links to his socials will be in the description below. Today, we take a further look into what seems to be a potential return of the Victis crew. The last time we saw Victis, they were banished into the Dark Aether along with the rest of reality. Since then, they have been absent from the story, but they've been leaving their fingerprints everywhere. Although Nikolai knew he had to send them to the Dark Aether, we don't think it would be too far of a stretch to say that he did them a favour by giving them their previous fortress, the bus from transit. With the help of Ted, they could traverse the wasteland in which they were thrown into. With Richtofen going silent and stuck with no direction, survival would be their main focus. Although the bus would serve them well, eventually a slow-moving vehicle would be a hindrance. As mentioned in our Ashes of the Damned video, Tessie has strong links to Victis. The car has obviously been through a lot, with reinforcements and repairs being found all over her frame. One could even look at the seats of Tessie and consider them to be more bus-like than car. On the front of Tessie, you can find a cow's skull fashioned as a figurehead. This is quite obviously a callback to Buried, with the map's logo looking similar to this skull. Ted is not just placed into the car, but wired directly into it. This implies whoever did this had knowledge of the mechanics of Ted and knowledge of the elemental shard, used to first power him. Although his memories are fractured, this is something that Russman was initially involved with at Broken Arrow. With the help of Malton, who falls into an inventor archetype, Ted could be used to power Tessie, allowing her to both heal passively and seemingly drive without consuming conventional fuel. Finally, the name Tessie is derived from a Greek name with links to harvesting and abundance. This is definitely a name that Misty would give to the car, with her roots in farming. Another note about the interior of Tessie, another one of our sous chefs, Sin, from the Discord, has been explaining to us how Mr. Peaks could be Cortifex's son. As we know, Cortifex was seen as Osiris to humanity. Osiris' son was Harpocrates, the young Horus. He was the god of childlike innocence, secrecy, and importantly, hope. Mr. Peaks is a protector in the Dark Aether, as seen in this intel from Outbreak, and with Zykov saying to us that there is a saying in the Dark Aether, "You are all out of rabbits." The implication here being the hope and protection Mr. Peaks brings. Seeing Victis thrown into the Dark Aether after all they went through, Mr. Peaks could have taken pity on them, travelling with them, watching over them, appearing on the gear stick of Tessie, akin to a lucky charm perhaps. A big thank you to Sin and her knowledge of the mythology and the storyline for this bit of the info. Links to her socials will also be found in the description.
In Tag to Toten, Victis acquire a Wunderwaffe before their exile into the Dark Aether. Fast forward to Ashes of the Damned, and one of the upgrades that we see for Tessie is a Wunderwaffe turret. When you look closely at the turret, the NATO symbol for anti-air or anti-tank weaponry can be seen. The implication here being that the original turret was stripped from a NATO vehicle. A few NATO sites that come to mind in zombies include Transit, the Pentagon, Area 51 and Camp Edward. All of these locations have a strong through line. Ted, built in Camp Edward, would know how to get back there. Marlton and Russman have also been to this site previously. Camp Edward was staffed and funded by the Pentagon. so it probably wouldn't be a stretch to say that Ted could also take them there. This leads on to an interesting idea regarding the Pentagon. In Classified, Stuhlinger can be heard trying to contact Richthofen through a phone. He mentioned that there's been radio silence for some time, and they don't know what to do next. In the theme of Classified story, this is an event happening out of order. Angel, during his research, brought up the idea that this phone call is happening on the same phone, one in the real world and one in the Dark Aether. The Dark Aether is a realm that exists outside of the normal boundaries of time. Yes, time moves forward relative to the beings that are there, but unlike how in our reality it's a straight line or a circle for the original cycle, time in the Dark Aether potentially moves outwards and inwards at every possible direction. The multiverse was thrown in, but he's still able to reach out and touch reality at a point where the multiverse hadn't been banished yet. The way I see time working in the Dark Aether can be explained as simply as this. Time in the Dark Aether, like the cycle, is a circle, but unlike how time in the cycle could be represented as the circumference of the circle, time in the Dark Aether is the area inside of the circle, measurable, but not in any way that we'd be used to with a usual timeline. Victis refusing to give up and continuously attempting to contact Richthofen, the only person who ever seems to understand what's going on, could play an important role in the build-up to Ashes of the Damned.
As mentioned in our Maledictus video, Richthofen was an outlier in the crew. Unlike Takeo, Dempsey and Nikolai, who had all been touched and affected by the Dark Aether, we believe he was touched by the Dark Aether of his own accord. Using this power, he was able to win World War II for Germany. But how did he discover the Dark Aether? Although the plot of Black Ops 6 builds up to the Odin artifact reforging the multiverse in the form of Yggdrasil, its strong link to the Dark Aether and the residual element 115 in Richthofen's bloodline's DNA, this was a retroactive effect. The branches grew forward, sprouting new futures, and the roots swelled into the Dark Aether, moving backwards. To a being in the Dark Aether, this multiverse had always existed, but on a relative note to Requiem, who was experiencing a linear sequence of events, it hadn't happened yet. On a side note, we believe that this was part of the Warden's plan, use the multiverse to create the multiverse. To return to Maledictus Richthofen, it could be speculated that in his universe, he discovered the Dark Aether when Stuhlinger once again attempted to reach out to the man who could help him and his friends, but unfortunately contacted the worst possible version of him. Telling Maledictus Richthofen what had happened, where they were, and feeding him this information that he would otherwise not have access to, eventually led to Richthofen breaking through to the Dark Aether. Once the war was won and he had no more need for him, Richthofen would continue Victis' nightmare by abandoning them, cutting contact completely. This mirrors the continuous treatment of Victis through their story, being used and thrown away constantly. But just like how every time after they were left stranded, Victis carried on. The previous phone call mentioned could even potentially happen after this point in time, as Stuhlinger mentions the other Richthofen. Back in the Prime universe, Eddie was finally reunited with his family, the people responsible for bringing them back being the Requiem crew, people who had been thrown into prison to rot. A completely selfless act on their part. Eddie, although being selfish and vindictive, would absolutely want to repay this act of kindness. We can absolutely believe that he is working on the outside to try and find and help Requiem. Stuhlinger, again trying to reach out to Richthofen, could have made contact with Eddie. After hearing of their situation, Eddie would give them a single instruction: get to Janus Towers.
When looking around Ashes of the Damned, there's a few things that stand out about the locations. Firstly, the traps that are located around the map strike a resemblance to the traps Victis built in Black Ops 2, thrown together with parts found laying around the area with a unique DIY aesthetic. We believe that Victis built these traps, either for their own survival or as instructed by Eddie to assist Requiem. Secondly, we think Victis built the ether generators found in the map. While travelling through Ashes of the Damned, Victis would find areas with and without power. In these areas without power, Marlton, with the help of Eddie, could have designed these generators to power the the areas that were shut off. When we find the generators in a game of Ashes, we find them in a state of disarray, being covered in spores, rendering them useless. This could show how long it's been relative to the Dark Aether sequence of time, to the relative minutes for Requiem between Reckoning and Ashes of the Damned. Something to back up this theory is when transporting the canister required for the Necrofluid Gauntlet, Tessie has a slot in the back specifically for this canister. Ted also makes remarks about the canister when it's picked up, implying that he's seen one before. There are even musical hints to support Victis' presence in Ashes. The track Buried in Ashwood directly calls back to Buried's theme, Fractured Earth. Finally, the poster for Tag to Toten shows a mountain range that strikes a very strong resemblance to Mount Etna. In Greek mythology, this was the mountain that Zeus trapped Typhon within, and where Hephaestus built his forge. For those who have seen our Ashes of the Damned video, all three of these names should sound familiar. We believe this poster to be a reference to Nikolai banishing the multiverse under reality. The name from Etna comes from the Greek for I burn, which is supposedly what Typhon screamed from under the mountains he was trapped. In the song, Turn to Ashes, there's a line which is emphasised, which makes reference to this quote from Typhon and the name of Mount Etna. We burn.
Thank you for watching this video. It wouldn't have been possible without the help from our new friends Angel and Sin. Once again, links to all of their socials will be in the description. Angel prepared a detailed PowerPoint presentation for us after he fell down this rabbit hole looking into Victis. We're so proud of the community that we're building and the conversations that are happening because of this content. We want to bring the community together and work with them to create the best content we possibly can. If you want to be a part of the discussion, be sure to join our Discord server using the link found below. Thank you again, and if you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it around with the rest of the community. Don't forget to subscribe to the Aether Kitchen for more speculation content. We are definitely cooking up some crazy things for all of you, so don't miss out on your dinner. Take care, guys.